Welcome to Daily 5 for Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. I came across an opinion piece over on the video game-centric website Polygon titled Deadpool and Wolverine bids farewell to the experimental superhero movie era. And I'll link to the article, of course. Read the article and largely agree with some of the points, or most of the points that the author is making about how we have seen I don't know exactly if we've seen less experimentation in superhero films, but we have definitely seen more things produced that are clearly aiming to be as safe as possible. Somewhat of a byproduct of two things. On the Marvel side, the acquisition by Disney. Disney not really being known for taking a lot of risks. And on the DC side, I think that's a byproduct of the fact that DC was, intentionally or not, experimenting quite a bit when they were trying to figure out how they could copy Marvel's formula, and they couldn't get it right, and they kept just doing more and more different things to try to figure out how to duplicate the Marvel success. And when that has failed, they have, I think, largely pulled back on that, as Marvel has. But I think in Marvel's case, I don't think any of this, to be honest, is due to a lack of experimentation. I think we've seen experimentation all the way through. It's never been that much of it, but I think that's largely been true of everything. Generally, if you look at video games, if you look at movies, if you look at music, anything else, once there is a formula that is being recognized as making money, short-term, long-term, doesn't even matter, what you are often going to see is that anybody producing anything in that space, they are going to be reluctant to go outside of what they see as the way that it works, unless there is some kind of demonstrated value that they're missing out on. And even if you can somehow say, well, there's this amount of money you're leaving out, they will want to see that demonstrated before they're going to commit to it. So I don't know that we really have seen an end to experimental filmmaking in the superhero space. I think it's just that right now, what we are seeing is the same problem that we've seen, again, in many other media, which is an oversaturation of the same way of doing things in the same ways. So if you think back to, if you're old enough, when the boy band and girl band thing came up in the 2000s, there were points where boy bands and girl bands were just being mass-produced, and they were almost interchangeable. In many cases, people got them confused. And of course, that genre burned itself out because there was just too much of it. If you look at video games, I talked about Concord, as many other people have, and said, well, the problem with that is not that it was a live service game, because some people will say that. I don't necessarily agree that that's the problem, but that it didn't do anything different. It was simply another live service game. As we've seen, Ubisoft had the same problem when they were cranking out Assassin's Creed every year. People started to get sick of it because every year you'd get basically the same game in a different setting, but without enough things that were fundamentally different to make you energized to play it. And so, of course, people will sit there and go, well, if I've got an 80-hour Assassin's Creed game from a year ago, I'm still haven't finished 60% of it, I'm just going to keep going on that, and I'll get to the other thing when I get to it. And it's been the same thing with these types of films, superhero films in particular. We've gotten so much of it, not only in theaters, but also now in the streaming experience. So even if, well, I think they were still making too many movies, but on top of that, now you have series that in many cases were made at least in a high quality in terms of what they looked like and the people involved. They were getting the same stars as the movies to be in the series. Well, at some point you sit there and go, okay, you know what? I kind of need a break. I've seen some variation of this multiple times in the last 6 to 12 months. And honestly, it's just like you can't eat the same donut every day for your entire life and not get bored of it. It's the same thing with movies or any other form of entertainment. There's a point where you need some space to be able to relax, to partially forget the movie that you just saw, so that when a new one comes around, say a year from now or 2 years from now, you're excited for it again. You want to see it because it's been a while. When you literally can go 3 months before you're going to see another movie that's very similar to the one that you just saw, it doesn't become that exciting anymore. So I don't think that what's going on here is a problem of experimentation, lack of it, or too much of it. I think it's a problem of moderation in that there isn't any. We're finally starting to see some of it only because the monetary returns have demanded it, not because anybody got wise to that, but I think whatever, it might have the same beneficial end result where we actually get to breathe a little bit between these movies and then forget about them partially. So I don't think the problem with superhero movies is a lack of experimentation. I think it's a lack of moderation. Later.